The massive hall stretched higher than any building on Earth. Taiho stood alone at the center, his simple gray suit looking plain against the colorful robes of the alien council members surrounding him. Above, a dome made of crystal showed the stars beyond. Those stars belonged to the species sitting in judgment today. None of them belonged to humanity. Taiho had practiced his speech for months. He had memorized every word, every pause, every gesture. Now, looking up at the 500 alien faces staring down at him, he felt his carefully prepared words slip away like water through his fingers. "Ambassador Taiho of Earth," a voice boomed across the hall. It came from a Velkari, a being that looked like a massive tree with too many branches and eyes scattered across its bark. "You have petitioned the Galactic Council for membership. You have asked to join the community of civilized worlds. Do you understand what you ask?" Taiho nodded. His throat felt dry. "I do, Counselor. Humanity seeks only to learn from you, to trade with you, to be part of something greater than ourselves." A sound rippled through the chamber. Taiho realized it was laughter, not friendly laughter, but the kind that comes when someone hears something foolish. An Osean floated forward. The jellyfish-like creature pulsed with colors that Taiho's translator chip rendered as words. "Learn from us? Your species discovered faster than light travel only 30 years ago. We have sailed the stars for 10,000 years. What makes you think you are ready?" Taiho felt anger rising in his chest, but he pushed it down. "We may be young, but we learn quickly. In 30 years, we have established colonies on 12 worlds. We have made contact with 16 species. We have offered friendship to all of them." "Friendship," another voice spoke. This one belonged to a trinexus, a species that looked like living metal in a vaguely humanoid shape. "Is that what you call it? When your ships carry weapons that could crack a planet? Is that friendship when every human we meet carries violence in their hearts?" The accusations came faster after that. One counselor after another stood to speak. They talked about human history, about the wars Earth had fought before reaching the stars. They mentioned weapons humanity had built, conflicts that had happened centuries ago. They brought up every mistake, every flaw, every dark moment in human records. Taiho tried to defend his species. "Yes, we have fought wars. Yes, we have made mistakes, but we learned from them. We grew. We changed. Is that not what civilization means? To become better than what you were?" "You are too dangerous," the Velkari counselor said. Its branches shook with emphasis. "Too unpredictable. Too aggressive. Look at yourselves. You have only just left your home world, and already you push outward like a plague. You consume resources at rates that shock us. You reproduce without control. You are a threat to the peaceful order we have built." "We are not a threat," Taiho said. His voice echoed in the vast chamber. "We are a young species trying to find our place. Give us a chance. Let us prove ourselves." "You have already proven what you are," the Osean replied. "The Council has reviewed your application. We have studied your species for 3 decades. We have reached our decision." The hall fell silent. Taiho felt his heart beating so hard he thought everyone could hear it. This was the moment. This was what humanity had hoped for, worked for, dreamed of. Membership in the Galactic Council would open doors to knowledge humanity had barely imagined. It would give them protection, trade, a place in the vast community of intelligent life. "The Council votes," the Velkari announced. Around the chamber, lights began to glow, red lights, one after another. Taiho counted them, 50, 100, 200. The red lights outnumbered the green by 10 to 1. "The petition is denied," the Velkari said. "Furthermore, the Council has determined that humanity poses a potential threat to the established order. Therefore, by the ancient laws that govern our union, we exercise our right of quarantine." Taiho felt his legs go weak. Quarantine? What does that mean? It means exile, the Trinexus said coldly. Humanity is hereby ordered to withdraw from all space within the boundary rim. You will remove your colonies. You will cease all expansion in our direction. You will retreat beyond the rim, where you can no longer threaten peaceful species. You are giving us 50 years, the Velkari continued. 50 years to gather your people and leave. After that, any human vessel found in Council space will be destroyed. This is not negotiable. This is not a debate. This is the judgment of the Galactic Council. Taiho wanted to argue. He wanted to scream at the injustice of it. They were not being judged on what they had done, but on what these ancient species feared they might do. But he saw the finality in their alien eyes. He saw the weapons platforms that orbited this station. He saw the power that these species commanded, and he understood that humanity had no choice. I understand, he said quietly. I will deliver your message to Earth. The council members began to leave. They simply disappeared, their holograms winking out one by one. Within minutes, Taiho stood alone in the vast chamber. His footsteps echoed as he walked toward the exit. On the ship taking him back to Earth, Taiho sat in darkness. He composed his report to the government. He tried to find words that would soften the blow, but there were none. Humanity had reached out to the stars seeking friendship and had been slapped away like an annoying insect. His communication system blinked. An incoming message. Taiho opened it and saw the face of Admiral Hana. She was younger than him, sharper, with eyes that missed nothing. I heard, she said without greeting, the council rejected us. Worse than rejected, Taiho replied. They are exiling us. We have 50 years to leave. Hana was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. It was not a happy smile. Then we leave, and we build something they never expected. What do you mean? They fear what we might become, Hana said. So let us become it. Beyond their sight, beyond their reach. We will take those 50 years and use them. When we are done, they will regret this day. Taiho looked at her determined face and felt something shift inside him. The disappointment did not disappear, but it changed. It became something harder, something stronger. Yes, he said. Let us show them what humanity can do when we are free. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying him home with news that would change everything. Behind him, the Galactic Council celebrated their wise decision to protect themselves from the dangerous humans. They did not know they had just made the greatest mistake in their 10,000-year history. The colony ship Horizon's Dawn was one of 3,000 vessels carrying humanity into exile. Inside its vast cargo holds, 20,000 people slept in suspended animation. On the bridge, Admiral Hana watched the stars slip by and counted the cost of their journey. 20 years had passed since the Council's judgment. Earth's government had moved quickly. They built ships, massive arc vessels that could carry entire cities' worth of people and supplies. They mapped the space beyond the boundary rim, searching for worlds that could support human life. They prepared for the greatest migration in human history. Admiral, a voice called. It was Lieutenant Yuna, her second in command. We are approaching the rim. Once we cross, we will be beyond Council sensor range. Hana nodded. Good. How many ships have we lost? 43 in the past 6 months, mostly to equipment failure. The colonies we left behind have been dismantled. Everyone is accounted for. 20 billion humans, Hana thought. All of them forced to leave homes they had built, worlds they had terraformed, lives they had made, because the Council feared them. The anger she felt never went away. She just learned to use it as fuel. The Horizon's Dawn crossed the boundary rim. Sensors showed empty space ahead. No Council patrol ships, no monitoring stations. They were truly alone now. Begin scanning for habitable worlds, Hana ordered, and send a message to the fleet. Welcome to freedom. The first world they found was a nightmare. Its atmosphere was poison, its surface blasted by radiation from a dying sun. The second was too cold, locked in an ice age that would not end for 10,000 years. The third, fourth, and fifth were no better. Hana began to worry. The fleet carried enough supplies for 5 years. After that, they would need to establish farms, factories, infrastructure. They needed a world, and they needed it soon. On the horizon's dawn, a scientist named Jinho worked in a cramped laboratory. He was studying the faster-than-light drive that powered their ship. For weeks, he had noticed something strange. The drive used a rare element called helium-3 as fuel. It was expensive and hard to find, but his readings showed that space in this region had something else, something different. He brought his findings to Admiral Hana. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a screen full of numbers and graphs. "The energy readings here are unusual. There is something in this region of space, an element I have never seen before." "What kind of element?" Hana asked. "I do not know. But if I am right, it could change everything." Hana authorized him to continue his research. She had learned to trust scientists who said, "If I am right, it could change everything." Those were the people who made breakthroughs. 3 months later, the fleet found a star system with 7 planets. The 4th planet from the sun had water, an atmosphere with oxygen, and temperatures that would support human life. When the scouts landed, they found forests, oceans, and skies that looked almost like Earth. "We will call it New Sol," Hana announced. "This will be our first home." The landing took 6 months. 3,000 ships descended, one after another. People woke from suspended animation to see a new world waiting for them. Engineers like Minji began the work of building cities. They used prefabricated modules at first, simple structures that could be assembled quickly. But Minji had bigger plans. She studied the planet's geology and found rich deposits of metals and minerals. She discovered that the local plant life could be modified to grow faster and produce materials useful for construction. Within a year, instead of cramped metal boxes, the first settlers were living in comfortable buildings that blended with the landscape. "This world is generous," Minji told Hana during an inspection. "It has everything we need. We were lucky to find it." "Luck had nothing to do with it," Hana replied. "We searched until we found it. That is what humans do. We do not give up." While New Sol grew, Jinho made his breakthrough. The strange element he had detected was everywhere in this region of space. It existed in asteroid belts, in planetary rings, even in the dust between stars. He managed to capture a sample and test it. The results shocked him. This element, which he named Nexium, was a better fuel than anything humanity had ever used. A single kilogram of Nexium could power a ship for months. It was stable, easy to refine, and incredibly abundant. "We are sitting on an ocean of energy," he told the assembled fleet commanders. "The Council uses helium-3 and antimatter. Both are rare and dangerous. Nexium is better than both, and we have unlimited access to it." The discovery changed everything. Ships that had been traveling for months could now cross the same distance in weeks. Power generators that had struggled to supply energy for growing colonies suddenly had more than they needed. Factories that had rationed their output began running at full capacity. More ships arrived from the core worlds. Humanity kept coming, fleeing the Council's territory before the 50-year deadline expired. Each wave brought more people, more skills, more determination. Not everyone survived the journey. Ships broke down. People died from accidents, from illness, from the simple stress of traveling so far from home. Hana attended memorial services every week, looking at the faces of those who had not made it. She remembered their names. She would not let their sacrifices be forgotten. 5 years after crossing the boundary rim, Humanity had established 30 colonies across 10 star systems. The population was growing fast. Children born in exile knew nothing of Earth except stories. To them, New Sol and the other new worlds were home. Hana stood on a cliff overlooking the first city built on New Sol. Behind her, Minji and Jinho waited with a delegation of colony leaders. They had news. "We found more worlds," Minji said. 12 systems that can support us. All of them rich in resources. All of them beyond Council reach. "And we have improved the Nexium drives," Jinho added. "We can jump farther now. The galaxy is bigger than we thought." Hana looked at the sunset. 2 moons hung in the purple sky. Strange birds flew overhead, their calls unfamiliar but somehow comforting. This was not Earth, but it was beautiful in its own way. "The Council thought exile would destroy us," she said. "They thought we would crawl back, begging for mercy. But we are not destroyed. We are free." "What do we do now?" Minji asked. Hana smiled. For the first time in years, it was a real smile. "We build, we grow, we explore, we become something the Council never imagined. And when we are ready, we show them what humanity can achieve." Far away, in Council space, the Velkari counselors received reports about the humans. The reports said the exile was proceeding smoothly. The dangerous species was gone, vanished beyond the rim. The Council celebrated their wise decision. They did not know that in the darkness beyond their sight, humanity was not dying. Humanity was being born again, forged by exile into something stronger than before. The Council would learn the truth eventually, but by then, it would be far too late. President Somin looked at the holographic map floating above her desk. It showed 300 star systems, each one marked with the blue symbol of human colonies. 30 years had passed since the Exodus began. The humans who lived in these systems had never seen Earth. They knew only freedom and the vast emptiness of space that was now their home. 300 systems, she said to General Wu Jin, who stood beside her. "When I was a child, we had 12 colonies and thought ourselves ambitious. Now look at us." Wu Jin studied the map with a soldier's eye. "We have grown fast, perhaps too fast. Our borders are difficult to defend. We are spread thin." "Then we need to build defenses that do not require thin spreading," Somin replied. She expanded the map to show a specific system. "This is where we will start. The Citadel Project." The Citadel was Somin's vision. Instead of scattered colonies that could be picked off one by one, humanity would build massive stations at strategic points. These stations would be fortresses, factories, and cities all in one. They would anchor human space and serve as bases for further expansion. Construction began in the Outer Veil, a region so far from Council space that their sensors could not even detect it. The first citadel took 3 years to build. It was a ring of metal and stone, 50 kilometers in diameter, housing 2 million people. Its factories could build a warship in a month. Its power generators, fed by Nexium, produced more energy than an entire solar system. Wu Jin commanded the military buildup. He had studied every battle humanity had ever fought. He had also studied the Council's military records, obtained through careful intelligence gathering. He learned their tactics, their weaknesses, their thinking. "The Council relies on numbers," he explained to his officers. "They have thousands of ships, but those ships are old. They use designs that have not changed in centuries. They believe their technology is superior because it is ancient." "And ours?" an officer asked. Wu Jin smiled. "Ours is new. We have no traditions holding us back. When we build a ship, we build it to win battles, not to honor the past." The first Terran Defense Fleet ships rolled out of the Citadel's construction yards. They did not look like Council ships. Those were elegant, decorated with symbols and colors that indicated rank and history. Human ships were gray, angular, covered in armor and weapons. They were built for one purpose: survival. Each ship carried Nexium-powered drives that made them faster than anything the Council had. They mounted railguns that could fire projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. They carried missiles with yields that made nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. And they were controlled by combat AI that could process tactical information faster than any biological mind. "We do not want to fight the Council," Soman often said in her speeches. "We want to build our own future. But if they come for us, they will learn that humans do not make easy prey." The economy of the Terran Union exploded. Nexium mining operations spread across 100 systems. Refineries processed it into fuel, into energy cells, into materials for construction. Human engineers discovered that Nexium could be used for more than just power. It could enhance computer systems, strengthen metal alloys, and even improve medical treatments. Trade began with other species, not Council members, but minor civilizations that existed in the spaces between the great powers. A species of peaceful farmers called the Lumians made contact. They had been ignored by the Council for centuries, considered too primitive to matter. Humanity offered them technology and protection in exchange for food and raw materials. "Why do you help us?" the Lumian ambassador asked Soman. "We have nothing you need." "You have friendship," Soman replied. "The Council taught us that being alone is dangerous. We will not make that mistake. We will build alliances with those they overlook." More species joined the network. The Kethran, who were excellent miners. The Vorlis, whose scientists understood biology in ways humans were still learning. The Praxis, whose art and culture enriched the growing human empire. None of them were powerful enough to interest the Council. Together with humanity, they became something greater than the sum of their parts. The years passed. Soman watched the Union grow beyond her wildest dreams. She walked through the gardens of the Citadel and saw children of a dozen species playing together. She visited factories where humans and aliens worked side by side. She attended universities where knowledge was shared freely, not hoarded by ancient species who feared change. "We have built something beautiful," she told Jinho, who was now the Union's chief scientist. "Something the Council could never create because they are trapped by their own fear." Jinho showed her his latest project. "We found ruins," he said, "on a dead world at the edge of our territory. They are old, very old, older than the Council. The ruins belong to a species that had vanished millions of years ago. The precursors, humans called them. They had built wonders that made the Council's achievements look primitive. And they had left behind technology that still functioned after eons. Teams of scientists studied the precursor sites. They found data crystals that contained vast libraries of information. They discovered machines that manipulated gravity, that folded space, that touched the fabric of reality itself. Most of it was beyond human understanding, but not all of it. "We can learn from this," Jinho said. "It will take decades, maybe centuries. But if we unlock even a fraction of precursor knowledge, we will leap forward by generations." Soman authorized unlimited resources for the research. She understood that knowledge was the ultimate power. The Council had kept humanity down through superior technology. Now, humanity would surpass them. On the military side, Wu Jin continued to build. The defense fleet grew to 5,000 ships, smaller than the Council's navy, but each human ship was worth 10 of theirs. He established training programs that turned civilians into soldiers in months. He built weapons platforms around every major colony. He prepared for a war he hoped would never come. "Do you think they will attack us?" Soman asked him during a private meeting. "Eventually," Wu Jin said, "when they realize what we have become. When they see that we are no longer the weak species they could exile with a vote. When they understand that we are now their equals, or perhaps their superiors. Pride will demand they try to crush us. Then we will be ready. We will. In Council space, 50 years after the exile, the monitoring stations at the boundary rim sent their final reports. The quarantine had worked perfectly. No human ships had attempted to cross. No messages had been received. The dangerous species had disappeared into the darkness and apparently died there, unable to survive without the Council's wisdom and protection. The Council declared the matter closed. They struck humanity from their records as a failed species, a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked aggression and ambition. They congratulated themselves on their wise handling of a difficult situation. They did not know that their sensors, designed to detect the energy signatures of their own drives, could not see the Nexium-powered ships that moved through the darkness. They did not know that humanity had not died, but had instead built an empire that stretched across 300 systems. They did not know that the species they had thrown away had become stronger than any of them. Salmon stood on the observation deck of the Citadel and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there beyond the rim, the Council continued their ancient games of politics and power. They thought themselves safe. They thought themselves supreme. "Let them think it," she whispered to the stars. "Let them sleep peacefully in their ignorance. When they finally wake up, we will be standing there, and they will see what they created when they tried to destroy us." Dr. Yunji stood in her laboratory and looked at the results of her latest experiment with a mixture of awe and fear. The numbers on her screen showed something that should not be possible. She had extended human cellular regeneration by 40%. People who took her treatment would live longer, heal faster, and stay healthy well into what was once considered old age. "Are you certain?" her assistant asked. "These results seem impossible." "I have tested it 300 times, Yunji replied. "It works. The question is whether we should use it." That question went all the way to the top. The Union Council met to discuss the implications of life extension technology. Some argued it would create inequality between those who could afford the treatment and those who could not. Others pointed out that longer lives meant more time to learn, to grow, to contribute to society. President Quan, who had taken over from Somin 5 years earlier, made the decision. "We make it available to everyone, rich or poor, human or alien. That is what separates us from the Council. They hoard their knowledge. We share ours." The treatment became available across the Union. Within a decade, the average human lifespan increased from 80 years to 130. People who had been elderly became middle-aged again. The elderly became active and vital. Children born with genetic diseases found themselves cured, but Yunji did not stop there. She worked with volunteers to enhance human capabilities in other ways. Improved eyesight that could see deeper into the electromagnetic spectrum, denser bone structure that made humans more resistant to injury, neural improvements that increased memory and processing speed. "We are becoming more than we were," she told Quan during a review meeting. "Is that good or bad?" "That depends on what we do with it," Quan replied. "Power without wisdom is dangerous, but wisdom without power is helpless. We need both." Meanwhile, Captain Hyun led exploration fleets deeper into unknown space. His ship, the Pathfinder, was equipped with the latest precursor-inspired technology. It could jump farther than any ship in the Union, scanning dozens of systems in the time it took older vessels to survey one. Hyun was born in exile. He had never seen Earth, never known the Council, never felt the sting of rejection that drove the older generation. To him, the Union was not a consolation prize. It was home, and it was glorious. His fleet discovered a nebula that contained Nexium in concentrations that defied belief. A single mining operation in that nebula could power the entire Union for a century. They found worlds with ancient forests, oceans teeming with life, mountains that touched the sky. They mapped trade routes that cut travel time between systems by half. "The galaxy is bigger than we imagined," Hyun reported, "and most of it is empty. The Council controls perhaps 5% of explored space. They think they rule the galaxy, but they barely understand a corner of it." His discovery changed Union policy. Instead of building defensively, they began to expand aggressively. Not to conquer, but to claim what was there for the taking. Within 10 years, the Union controlled 500 systems. Within 20, it was 1,000. Other species took notice. Minor civilizations that had existed in the shadow of the Council saw humans as something new and exciting. They sent ambassadors asking to join the Union. Some came for protection, others came for the technology. Most came because they saw humans treating their allies as equals, something the Council had never done. The Drayan were warriors who had fought the Council for centuries and lost every time. They swore allegiance to the Union and brought their combat experience. The Nesh were traders with networks spanning thousands of worlds. They joined and opened those networks to human merchants. The Quinn were poets and philosophers who enriched Union culture with new ideas. "We are not building an empire," Quan often said. "We are building a family of species that choose to stand together instead of bowing to ancient powers that care nothing for them." The precursor research continued. Jinho, now elderly despite the life extension treatments, led teams that had spent decades studying the ancient ruins. They had unlocked secrets that seemed like magic. Gravity manipulation that made artificial gravity fields as easy as turning on a light. Energy shields that could withstand devastating attacks. Quantum communication that allowed instant contact across any distance. The Council still used radio transmissions that took years to cross their territory. The Union could communicate across 1,000 light-years in real time. The Council still struggled with artificial gravity that made people sick. The Union's ships had gravity as stable as a planet's. The Council's shields could stop lasers and missiles. The Union's shields could stop almost anything. "We have surpassed them," Jinho told Quan during a private meeting. "In almost every way that matters, we are now superior to the species that exiled us." "Do they know?" Quan asked. "I do not think so. They do not look in our direction. They assume we are still the weak, primitive species they remember. They are in for a shock. That shock came sooner than expected. A Council exploration vessel malfunctioned near the boundary rim. Its crew sent a distress signal. By ancient law, all species were required to respond to distress calls. But the call went out on frequencies the Council used, and only Council ships monitored them. Except that Captain Yun's fleet had been experimenting with signal intercepts. They picked up the distress call. Hyun faced a choice. The Council had exiled humanity. They had no obligation to help. But Hyun was a man who believed in doing what was right, not what was easy. "We respond," he ordered. "All ships, plot a course to the distress beacon." His fleet jumped to the location. They found a Council ship dead in space, its engines failed, its life support failing. Hyun's crew rescued the aliens aboard. There were Velkari, Ossian, and Trinexus, the same species that had voted to exile humanity. The rescued Council crew were shocked. They saw the human ships with their advanced designs. They experienced the gravity fields, the shields, the medical technology that healed injuries they thought permanent. They were treated with kindness by the species they had condemned to death. "Why did you save us?" the Velkari captain asked Hyun. "We are not friends. We are not allies." "No," Hyun agreed. "But you were in trouble. That is enough." The Council ship was beyond repair, so Hyun's fleet brought the survivors to the nearest Council outpost. The aliens departed without thanks, suspicious and confused. Hyun watched them go and wondered if he had made a mistake. "They will report what they saw," his first officer said. "They will tell the Council that humans have advanced technology, that we are strong." "Good," Hyun replied. Let them know. Let them understand that we did not die in exile. We thrived. News of the rescue spread through Council space slowly. At first, the Council dismissed it as exaggeration. Humans could not have advanced so far in only 80 years. It was impossible, but more reports came in. Ships at the Boundary Rim reported strange sensor readings. Merchant vessels told stories of meeting human traders with goods and technology that surpassed Council standards. Finally, the Council sent a reconnaissance mission. They had to know the truth. The ships jumped to the last known location of human colonies. They found nothing. Those colonies had been abandoned decades ago, so the Council ships went deeper, crossing the Boundary Rim into what they thought was empty space. What they found shocked them. They discovered the edge of human territory. They saw the massive citadels orbiting strategic systems. They detected the signatures of thousands of ships moving between hundreds of worlds. They intercepted communications that showed a thriving civilization that spanned more territory than the entire Council. The reconnaissance ships returned with their data. The Council convened an emergency session. They looked at the evidence and could not believe it. The species they had exiled, the dangerous humans they had feared, had not only survived, but had built something that rivaled their own civilization. This is impossible, the Velkari counselor insisted. They were children when we expelled them. How could they grow so much in such a short time? They grew, an Ossian replied, because we gave them no choice. We forced them to adapt or die. They chose adaptation. For the first time in thousands of years, the Galactic Council felt fear. Not fear of war or destruction, but fear of obsolescence. They had ruled the galaxy through superiority. Now that superiority was challenged by the very species they had tried to suppress. Director Nari of Union Intelligence stared at the intercepted transmission with growing concern. The message was encoded in Council diplomatic frequencies, heavily encrypted, marked with priority codes that indicated extreme urgency. Her team had cracked it in less than an hour. What it contained made her blood run cold. "Get me Chancellor Quan immediately," she ordered. The message came from the Velkari Empire, one of the most powerful members of the Council. It was addressed to any and all civilizations, broadcast on every frequency they knew. It was a distress call, but unlike any distress call in recorded history. The Velkari were not asking for help with a mechanical failure or a natural disaster. They were asking for military aid. Something was invading Council space, something the message called the Devourers. Quan arrived at intelligence headquarters within the hour. Nari showed him the decoded message and the data that came with it. The Devourers had appeared 6 months ago at the edge of Council territory. At first, the Council thought they were raiders or pirates. They sent patrol ships to deal with them. Those patrol ships never returned. The Council sent a battle fleet. 200 ships, armed with weapons that had kept peace in the galaxy for millennia. The fleet engaged the Devourers near a mining colony. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the mining colony was gone. So were the 200 ships. "They are not from our galaxy," Nari explained, pointing to the data. "The analysis suggests they come from dark space, the void between galaxies. They consume everything: metal, organic matter, energy itself. They break it down and use it to build more of themselves." "How many are there?" Quan asked. "Unknown. The Council has lost contact with 17 systems. That is the last reliable count. They are requesting military assistance from all civilizations. They are even asking species they previously rejected." Nari paused. "They are asking us for help." Quan was silent for a long moment. He thought about the exile, about the way the Council had thrown humanity away like garbage, about the years of struggle and hardship that followed. Part of him wanted to ignore the message. Let the Council face the consequences of their arrogance. But he was not a man who let innocent people die to satisfy his pride. "Convene the War Council," he ordered. I want every military leader, every scientist, and every diplomat in the Union at the Citadel within 24 hours. We need to understand what we are facing." While Quan gathered his advisors, a young fleet officer named Do Yun was conducting a routine patrol near neutral space. Do Yun had joined the defense fleet 3 years ago. He was good at his job, disciplined and smart, but he had never seen combat. The Union had been at peace his entire life. That changed when his sensors detected an anomaly, a distress beacon from a civilian settlement on the edge of neutral territory. Do Hyun's first instinct was to call for backup, but the settlement was dying. Every second counted. "All ships jump to the beacon location," he ordered. "Battle stations, shields up, weapons ready." His squadron of 6 ships jumped. They arrived to find chaos. The settlement was under attack. Strange ships, if they could be called ships, swarmed around the colony. They looked organic, like massive insects made of metal and flesh. They were tearing the settlement apart, literally consuming it piece by piece. "What are those things?" his weapons officer asked. "I do not know," Do Hyun replied. "But they are killing civilians. Open fire." The human ships launched their attack. Railguns fired streams of projectiles that tore through the alien vessels. Missiles with fusion warheads exploded in brilliant flashes. Energy weapons carved burning lines across the enemy formation. The Devourers responded. They launched projectiles that moved in ways that defied physics, curving through space like living things. They fired beams that could cut through armor like it was paper. But human shields held. Human armor absorbed the damage, and human weapons kept firing. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, the Devourer ships were destroyed. Do Hyun's squadron had taken damage but no casualties. More importantly, they had saved 3,000 civilians from the settlement. "Sir," his communications officer called, "we have incoming transmission, multiple sources. They are saying thank you." The saved civilians were not human. They were Velkari, Ossian, and a dozen other Council species. They had been abandoned when the Council fleet retreated, left to die because saving them would have cost too many ships. "We thought no one would come," a Velkari elder said over the channel. Her voice shook with emotion. "The Council said they would return, but they did not. You came instead. You are humans, are you not?" "We are," Do Hyun confirmed. "The Council said humans were dangerous. They said you were monsters who would destroy everything you touched. But you saved us. Why?" Do Hyun thought about how to answer that. Finally, he said, "Because it was the right thing to do." Back at the Citadel, Quan's War Council met. General Wu Jin presented intelligence on the Devourers. The data from Do Hyun's battle had been analyzed. The enemy was formidable, but not invincible. They relied on overwhelming numbers and their ability to consume resources to build more ships. But they were vulnerable to concentrated firepower and coordinated tactics. "We can fight them," Wu Jin concluded. "We can win. The question is whether we should." "The Council exiled us," an admiral pointed out. "They threw us away. Let them face this threat alone." "If the Council falls," Nari countered, "the Devourers will not stop there. They will keep spreading. Eventually they will reach our territory. We can fight them now, alongside the Council, or fight them later, alone." "There is another consideration," Quan said quietly. "The Council is millions of civilians. Billions of innocent people who had nothing to do with our exile. Do we let them die to punish the politicians who wronged us?" The room fell silent. Every person there had suffered because of the Council's decision. Every person had lost something when humanity was forced into exile. The temptation to ignore the Council's plea was strong, but they were not the Council. They were better than that. "We help them," Quan decided, "but on our terms. We do not beg for acceptance. We do not ask for permission. We go as equals, or we do not go at all." A message was sent to Council space. It was addressed to the Velkari Empire and all council members. It was short and direct. We have received your distress call. The Terran Union will provide military assistance against the Devourer threat. We will send fleets, weapons, and supplies. We ask for nothing in return except recognition as an independent civilization with the right to exist. If you agree to these terms, respond within 48 hours. If you do not, we wish you luck against your enemies. The response came in 24 hours. The council agreed. They had no choice. They were losing the war. They needed help, even from the species they had once condemned. Fleet Admiral Hayun, daughter of the legendary Admiral Hana, took command of the Union Expeditionary Force. She was younger than her mother had been when she led the Exodus, but she had inherited her mother's determination and tactical genius. Under her command were 500 of the Union's best warships and 50,000 of its finest soldiers. "Remember," she told her fleet before they departed, "we are not fighting for the Council. We are fighting for the innocent people they failed to protect. We are fighting because it is right. And we are fighting to show them what humanity has become." The fleet jumped toward Council space. Behind them, the Union mobilized its full military might. Factories went into overdrive producing weapons and ammunition. Research teams worked day and night to develop new countermeasures against Devourer technology. Volunteers lined up by the thousands, asking to serve. In council chambers, the ancient species watched the human fleet approach their territory. Some felt relief. Others felt shame. All of them felt shock at what humanity had become. The weak species they had exiled now came to save them. The Velkari Emperor convened a private meeting with his closest advisors. "We made a mistake 80 years ago," he said. "We thought we were protecting ourselves from a threat. Instead, we created something we do not understand. The humans are not our enemies. But I do not think they are our friends either." "What are they then?" an advisor asked. The Emperor looked at the display showing the approaching human fleet. Ships larger and more advanced than anything the Council possessed. Technology that had leaped forward by centuries in less than a single lifetime. A civilization built on principles of equality and cooperation that the ancient Council had forgotten. "They are what we could have been," the Emperor said slowly, "if we had chosen hope instead of fear." Fleet Admiral Hayun stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Indomitable, as it emerged from jump space into Council territory. Around her, 500 human warships materialized in perfect formation. The display showed Council vessels waiting nervously at a safe distance. They had been warned the humans were coming. Actually seeing it was different. "Open a channel to the Council fleet," Hayun ordered. "Let us introduce ourselves properly." A Velkari admiral appeared on the screen. His branches trembled slightly, a sign of stress in his species. "This is Admiral Korthax of the Council Defense Force. We welcome your assistance, Admiral Hayun." "We are here to fight the Devourers," Hayun said simply. "Show us where they are." The Council fleet led them to the front lines. What Hayun saw there shocked even her. Entire systems had been consumed, planets stripped of their atmospheres, moons torn apart for their minerals, space stations reduced to debris fields. The Devourers left nothing behind but emptiness. "How many ships have you lost?" she asked Korthax. 3,000 vessels, maybe more. We stopped counting after the first month." 3,000 ships. The number staggered her. The Council had possessed the largest navy in known space. Now it was being destroyed piece by piece by an enemy that consumed everything it touched. "We need to see them fight," Hayun said. "Take us to an active combat zone." The combined fleet jumped to a system under attack. Devourer ships swarmed around a colony world. Council defenders were losing badly. Their weapons seemed to barely hurt the enemy. Their shields collapsed under the relentless assault. Ship after ship died as the Devourers overwhelmed them. "All human vessels," Hayun commanded, "execute attack pattern Delta." Show them how we fight." The human ships accelerated forward. They moved faster than the Council vessels, their Nexium drives giving them acceleration that seemed impossible. Their formation split into 3 groups, each one targeting a different part of the Devourer swarm. Railguns fired first. Streams of metal moving at relativistic speeds tore through enemy ships. The Devourers tried to dodge, but human targeting computers predicted their movements perfectly. Explosions bloomed across the enemy formation. Missiles came next. Not the slow, predictable missiles the Council used, but weapons with their own AI that could think and adapt. They wove through enemy fire, found weak points in Devourer armor, and detonated with devastating effect. Energy weapons completed the assault. Beams of coherent light, powered by Nexium reactors, burned through anything they touched. Where Council lasers took minutes to cut through Devourer hull material, human weapons did it in seconds. The battle lasted 30 minutes. When it ended, the Devourer attack force was destroyed. Not a single human ship had been lost. The colony was saved. Korthax stared at his displays in disbelief. "How did you do that? We have been fighting these things for months. We barely hurt them. You destroyed them completely." "We are not you," Hayun replied. "We do not use thousand-year-old tactics and weapons. We adapt, we innovate, we win." News of the human victory spread through Council space like fire. Species that had been preparing to evacuate suddenly had hope. The Devourers could be beaten. Humanity had proved it. But Hayun knew one battle meant nothing. The Devourers were still coming. They needed to be stopped at the source. Commander Seojun led the ground forces. He was a Marine, born in the Union, trained from youth in combat that the Council had forgotten centuries ago. His soldiers wore power armor that increased their strength tenfold. They carried weapons that could level buildings. They were trained to fight in any environment, against any enemy. When the Devourers took a colony world, the Council would usually abandon it. The cost of retaking a planet was too high, but Seojun did not accept that logic. "We take it back," he told Hayun. "Every world they capture is resources they use against us. We hit them on the ground and destroy their ability to produce new ships." The first planetary assault targeted a mining world the Devourers had captured 2 weeks earlier. Seojun's Marines dropped from orbit in armored pods. They landed in the middle of a Devourer processing facility where enemy machines were breaking down the planet's resources. The battle was brutal. Devourers on the ground were different from their ships. They were massive, partially organic machines that could reshape themselves to counter threats. But they had never faced opponents like human Marines. Seojun's soldiers moved through the facility with deadly efficiency. Their armor protected them from weapons that would have killed unarmored soldiers. Their weapons punched through enemy defenses. Their training and discipline allowed them to coordinate in ways the Devourers could not counter. "Target the central processor," Seojun ordered. "That is their command center. Destroy it and the rest will fall apart." The Marines fought their way to the heart of the facility. They planted explosives and evacuated. The explosion was visible from orbit, a mushroom cloud that rose into the thin atmosphere. When it cleared, the Devourer facility was gone. "Planet secured," Seojun reported. "Minimal casualties. Ready for liberation operations." Council civilians who had been enslaved by the Devourers were freed. They were thin, exhausted, traumatized by their ordeal. Human medics treated them. Human engineers restored their colony. Human soldiers stood guard while they recovered. A Trinexus colonist approached Seojun after the liberation. The metallic being looked at the human commander with something like awe. "You came back for us. The Council said you would not. They said humans were too savage to care about others." "The Council was wrong about many things," Seojun replied. Meanwhile, scientist Jisoo worked with Council researchers to understand the Devourers better. She studied the wreckage of enemy ships. She analyzed their weapons, their biology, their technology. What she found disturbed her. "They are not natural," she told Heun and Korthax during a briefing. "They were created, engineered by someone or something as a weapon." "Who would create such things?" Korthax asked. "I do not know, but they have a weakness. Their ships and machines are controlled by a network. Disrupt the network and they become confused, easy to defeat. The problem is finding the network's core." "How do we do that?" Heun asked. "We follow them back to their source. They come in waves. There must be a place where they are built, where the network originates. We find that place. We end this war." The search took weeks. Human scout ships, faster and stealthier than anything the Council possessed, tracked Devourer movements. They followed the enemy ships back through multiple jump points, deeper into unexplored space. Finally, they found it. A massive structure in the darkness between galaxies. It was the size of a moon, covered in construction facilities that were building new Devourer ships by the thousands. And at its center, a network core that controlled everything. "That is our target," Heun announced. "We destroy that. We win the war." She assembled a strike force. The best ships, the best soldiers, the best equipment the Union possessed. The Council offered to send their own forces, but Heun refused. "This is too dangerous," she said. "If we fail, the Council needs to still have forces to defend itself. We will handle this." "Why?" Korthax asked. "Why do you risk everything for us?" Heun thought about her mother, about the exile, about all the years humanity had spent in the darkness beyond the rim. She thought about what they had built in that darkness, and she realized something. "Because we can," she said. "Because we are strong enough to help those who cannot help themselves." Is that not what civilization means? To protect the weak? To fight for what is right? You taught us that lesson when you exiled us. You taught us that we could not rely on anyone but ourselves. So we became strong. And now that we are strong, we choose to do what you should have done all along. The strike force jumped to the Devourer construction facility. The battle that followed would be recorded in the history books of a dozen civilizations. Human ships fought against impossible odds. They dodged weapons that could crack planets. They endured fire that would have destroyed Council vessels in seconds. Seojan's Marines boarded the facility. They fought through corridors filled with enemy machines. They placed charges on the network core, and they barely escaped before the entire structure detonated. The explosion was visible across 3 star systems. When it faded, the Devourer threat was broken. The ships that remained active suddenly went still. Without the network, they were just drifting metal. Easy targets for cleanup operations. Council space erupted in celebration. Species that had been preparing for extinction suddenly had a future again, and they knew who had given them that future. The Velkari Emperor sent a personal message to Chancellor Quan. "You saved us," the message said. "You came when no one else could. You fought when we had given up. We were wrong to exile you. We were wrong about everything. We beg your forgiveness." Quan read the message and smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had proven a point. "Tell the Emperor," he said to his communications officer, "that we do not need his apology. We needed his respect, and I think we finally have it." 3 years after the Devourer War ended, representatives from every known civilization gathered at a neutral station called Unity Point. The station had been built specifically for this meeting, constructed by human engineers using precursor-inspired technology. It was beautiful, with gardens from 100 worlds and architecture that blended styles from dozens of species. Chancellor Quan walked through those gardens with Ambassador Taeho. The old diplomat was nearly 150 years old now, kept alive by Yunji's life extension treatments. He moved slowly, but his mind was as sharp as ever. "I never thought I would see this day," Taiho said, looking at the delegates gathering for the conference. "When I stood before the council all those years ago and they rejected us, I thought humanity's dream of joining the galactic community was dead." "It was dead," Quan replied. "That dream died. But we built a better dream in its place." The conference chamber was enormous. Instead of the tiered seating that had made the old council chamber feel like a courtroom, this room had a circular arrangement. Every delegation sat at the same level. No species was above another. It was a small detail, but it changed everything. The Velkari Emperor opened the proceedings. He looked older than when he had sent the distress call. The war had aged him. He had seen his civilization brought to the edge of extinction and saved by the species he had once condemned. "We are here," he began, "to dissolve the Galactic Council and create something new, something better. For 10,000 years, the Council has maintained order through tradition and hierarchy. But tradition failed us. When the Devourers came, our ancient ways could not save us. We needed new thinking. We needed innovation. We needed humanity." He paused and looked directly at Quan. "We exiled them because we feared they would disrupt our order. We were right to fear. They did disrupt it. And thank the stars they did, because our order was killing us." Murmurs ran through the chamber. This was an extraordinary admission. The great powers of the council were acknowledging that they had been wrong, not just about humanity, but about everything. "Therefore," the Emperor continued, "I propose we establish the Galactic Assembly, a new organization where every species has an equal voice, where membership is a right, not a privilege granted by the powerful, where knowledge and technology are shared freely instead of hoarded." The proposal passed unanimously. The Galactic Council, which had ruled for millennia, ceased to exist. In its place rose the Galactic Assembly, with principles written by human diplomats who remembered what it felt like to be excluded. Quan was asked to deliver the keynote address. He stood at the central podium, looking at the faces of species that had once looked down on humanity. Now they looked at him with respect, some with gratitude, a few with fear. 80 years ago, Quan began, my predecessor stood before the council and asked for humanity to be accepted. He promised we would be good neighbors, that we would learn from you, that we would contribute to galactic civilization. The council said no. They said we were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too young. He let the words hang in the air. Everyone in the chamber knew what came next. They were right. We were dangerous. We were unpredictable. We were young. But those are not weaknesses. They are strengths. Our danger came from our refusal to accept defeat. Our unpredictability came from our ability to innovate. Our youth gave us the energy to build something new. Quan looked around the chamber. The council exiled us thinking it would protect you. Instead, it set us free. Free to grow without the weight of your traditions holding us back. Free to build a civilization based on merit instead of age. Free to prove that being young and different is not a crime. When you needed us, we came. Not because you deserved our help. Not because you had earned our friendship. But because it was right. Because that is what strong civilizations do. They protect the weak. They defend the innocent. They choose mercy over revenge. He paused. The Terran Union does not want apologies. We do not want reparations. We do not want anyone to grovel or beg. We want partnership. We want cooperation. We want to build a galaxy where no species is ever exiled for being different. Where no civilization is judged not by what they are, but by what they might become. The chamber erupted in applause. Not polite diplomatic applause, but genuine emotion. Species that had been enemies for centuries stood and cheered. The old barriers were falling. Something new was being born. After the speech, delegations lined up to meet with human representatives. The Osean wanted to establish student exchange programs. The Drayan proposed joint military exercises. The Nesh offered to open their entire trade network to Union merchants. Dozens of minor species that had lived in the shadows of the great powers asked to join the Union directly. "We are becoming what the Council feared," Director Nari observed to Quan. "The center of galactic civilization." "Not the center," Quan corrected. "A center, one among many. That is the difference. The Council wanted to rule. We just want to exist." But Nari was right in one sense. Human technology became the standard. Nexium power replaced older energy sources. Jump gate networks connected thousands of systems. Life extension treatments became available to all species. The innovations humans had developed during their exile transformed the galaxy. Scientists like Jisoo established research institutes where species worked together on problems that had seemed unsolvable. Precursor technology was studied by teams of humans and aliens, unlocking secrets that benefited everyone. Medical advances cured diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia. Admiral Heian retired from military service to teach at the new Galactic Defense Academy. She trained officers from every member species in the tactics that had defeated the Devourers. Her students went on to establish security forces that protected the assembly from threats. Commander Seojun became an ambassador. He traveled to worlds devastated by war and helped them rebuild. His Marines became peacekeepers, protecting refugees and stabilizing conflict zones. The soldiers who had saved the galaxy became the guardians of its recovery. Dr. Yoonji continued her research, but now with resources from across the assembly. She made breakthroughs that extended life, enhanced capability, and eliminated genetic diseases for dozens of species. She won every major scientific award the galaxy offered. She accepted them all with the same simple statement: science should serve everyone, not just the privileged. Captain Hyun led exploration fleets that included ships from every major civilization. Together, they mapped regions of space that no one had seen before. They found wonders, ancient ruins, beautiful nebulae, planets covered in forests of crystal that sang in the solar wind. But the greatest discovery was not a place or a thing. It was the discovery that cooperation worked better than competition, that sharing knowledge created more value than hoarding it, that diversity made civilizations stronger instead of weaker. 5 years after the assembly was formed, the first joint colony was established. New Harmony, they called it. Humans and Velkari built cities side by side. Ocean and Trinexus shared laboratories. Children of a dozen species played together in streets designed by architects from everywhere. Taiho visited New Harmony shortly before his death. He was very old now, even with life extension, but he wanted to see what humanity had helped create. He walked through the streets with Quan, looking at the mixed crowds, the blended architecture, the symbols of unity everywhere. "This is better than my dream," Taiho said quietly. "I dreamed of humanity being accepted into their civilization. Instead, we helped them build a better civilization entirely." "Your dream did not die," Quan told him. "It evolved, like we evolved. That is what makes humanity special. We do not give up when doors close. We build new doors." Taiho died peacefully in his sleep that night. His funeral was attended by thousands, not just humans, but representatives from every member of the assembly. The Velkari Emperor himself delivered a eulogy. "Ambassador Taiho came to us asking for acceptance," the Emperor said. "We refused him. We broke his heart and his dream. But we could not break his spirit. He went home and told his people to build something better, and they did. They built a future that includes us all. We owe him a debt we can never repay." Chancellor Quan stood at Taiho's grave after the ceremony. The old diplomat had been buried on New Harmony, the world that symbolized everything he had hoped for. Looking at the sunset, watching ships from a dozen species cross the sky, Quan thought about the journey humanity had taken. They had been rejected. They had been exiled. They had been told they were not good enough, not civilized enough, not worthy enough. Instead of accepting that judgment, they had built an empire. Instead of seeking revenge, they had offered help. Instead of becoming what the council feared, they had become something better. "We did it," Quan whispered to the stars. "We showed them. We showed everyone. Humanity does not beg for a place at the table. We build our own table, and then we invite everyone to sit with us. Across the galaxy, in 1,000 systems, humans and aliens worked together. They built cities. They explored mysteries. They solved problems. They created art. They fell in love. They raised children who did not know the prejudices of their parents. The Galactic Council had feared what humanity might become. They were right to fear. Humanity became powerful. Humanity became advanced. Humanity became influential. But most importantly, humanity became kind. They became generous. They became the civilization that helped others instead of dominating them. They became the species that chose cooperation over conquest. The Council had tried to exile humanity to protect themselves. Instead, they had created the very thing that would save them all. Not through force, but through example. Not through conquest, but through character. On Earth, now a museum world preserved as a reminder of where humanity came from, a monument was built. It showed Ambassador Taiho standing alone before the council. Beneath it, words were carved in 100 languages. They tried to diminish us. We became great. They tried to exclude us. We included everyone. They tried to stop us. We built a better future. This is the human way. This is the way of the Terran Union. This is the promise we make to all who come after. No one will be left behind. No one will be forgotten. No one will be exiled. Because we remember what it felt like. And we will never let it happen again. The galaxy had changed. The old order was gone. In its place was something that the ancient species never imagined. A civilization built not on the wisdom of age, but on the courage of youth. Not on the power of the strong, but on the rights of all. Humanity had been exiled by the Galactic Council. In response, humanity had built an empire. And then, when given the chance for revenge, they had chosen something better. They had built a family instead. That was the final lesson. That was what made humanity special. Not their technology, or their tactics, or their determination, but their choice, when standing over those who had wronged them, to offer a hand instead of a fist. The galaxy was better for it. And humanity, the species once deemed too dangerous to exist among civilized beings, had become the heart of galactic civilization itself.